Welcome to College Admissions Toolbox, giving you the edge you need to get into the colleges of your dreams. With your host, Steve Schwartz. That's me. Today, we're talking with Alex Mitchell and David Patou with Campus Sherpa. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing well. How are you, Steve?
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you guys started Campus Sherpa. You're trying to help students tour colleges with college students themselves on the campus. How do you get into that?
Yeah, it's been a long road now. So we're sophomores here at Georgetown University, both David and I. But David, you really experienced kind of what got the company started. Do you want to tell us the story?
Yeah, I think it all sort of takes us back to our own college visiting process. So, both Alex and I come from California. So when it I guess it was our junior year, spring break time, flew to the East Coast, visited a bunch of schools. And at all of the schools that we visited, we went on the official tour and the info session and got a lot of important insights there. But at schools where, there was someone from our high school or we had a family friend, in addition to the official tour, we would meet up with that person to try and organize coffee or see their dorm or go to a class with them. Really anything to just get sort of a more personalized story of what it's like for one person and hear about one person's experiences at that school. So with that in mind, we thought, well, at most of the schools that we visited and most of the schools that most people visit, they don't have that person from their high school, older sibling, family friend. So creating a mechanism in which college students who are incredibly passionate about their schools and definitely qualified to be talking about their own experiences, providing a platform to connect those people with the high school students who could really benefit from that information.
Yeah, and so basically what happened was I had been working, right when we got here back, we took, David and I are actually both from Palo Alto in kind of the San Francisco area, and we had actually never met. We had the same speech and debate coach back in high school who takes full credit for starting this company now. But David and I ended up on the same pre-orientation trip. So we hadn't met each other, and we ended up both like backpacking in the Shenandoah for like 5 days, which is that's the best way to bond with any co-founder or anyone, because that is the most difficult thing we've ever had to go through. But basically, David and I got to know each other there. We came back to Georgetown, we started Georgetown in September of last year. And then I started working on this other startup. I got into the startup community. And then David came and I worked on my startup. It really went nowhere. And then David came up with this idea after sort of like tour guide admissions and applications came out. Georgetown has, it has a very strong tour guide process. But at the same time, a lot of kids get turned down because they're extremely selective. And so basically what the idea was, like, there's so many kids here who are so passionate, and we know a lot of them, and they're very articulate, how can we help them tell the story? So what we did after that was basically David had that idea, and I had just come out of a startup that didn't go anywhere, so I was angry and angsty, and David came up to me and said, like, the three words I didn't want to hear, which is, I have an idea for a company. And I was like, no.
Not again, right?
I'm tired. Let me go do comedy or something else. And then I heard the idea for the company, and I was instantly like, that is a very good idea. So I instantly jumped on board, and then, since then it's nowhere near as sexy as like when you watch The Social Network or like what Steve Jobs is almost in theaters. When you watch those movies, it's so like cool and chic and hip. And in reality, like, it's sitting in a lawyer's office trying to file a form to get yourself recognized as like a subchapter S corporation in an obscure state. It's so much less interesting putting it together. But that's kind of that's the origin story of the company. So we've just been working on it since then.
That sounds amazing. Definitely there's a big need for getting that kind of unfiltered raw information directly from students. I assume that some of the students who've been through the tour guide orientation process at Georgetown, and I'm sure they kind of have to give a party line to some extent. What would you say about that?
Well, I think maybe to a certain extent that's true. Alex and I have a lot of good friends who are in the, tour guide society here, and, friends from back home who went to different schools who are tour guides there. I think the sort of broader point is that, they're trained and they're great. So they, can stand up in front of a group of 30 people and talk about the history of Georgetown and, the available offerings here and maybe even financial aid. I don't exactly know, But what they can't do is talk, to every specific set of interests of every student on their tour, where there are about 30 people there, right? So, if you're a high school student interested in pre-med and varsity sports, and your tour guide is a econ major, in theater, they can only talk so much towards what your experience would be like. What's much more beneficial for the high school student is to actually sit down with a pre-med student in varsity sports and hear completely what is it like to be that type of person at this institution.
Yeah, I mean, when I was applying to Georgetown, basically what happened was pretty much something just like that. Like I was, really torn between Georgetown and another school, and basically I didn't make my decision until one kid who I happened to run into by sheer serendipity, took me aside when I was walking around the school for 20 minutes, something he definitely didn't have to do. And he kind of I asked him quite honestly, I'm like, what is school like here? And he related to me through theater and through an interest in improv comedy and entrepreneurialism. And he walked me through the entire thing. And so basically that's the idea of Campus Sherpa, giving a personal face to each of these schools because, the students who are here love it here, right? Or at least they have some sort of very honest feedback. And the idea is, how do we give that to the students as they're in the application process? How do we give sort of a personal touch point so they can really think all right, now I feel like I know. I know what it's like to be there.
That level of personalization really sounds great. I mean, you go on a campus tour, you're kind of, at the mercy of whoever the tour guide might be. And if they're an engineer and you're, going to major in English or poli-sci, they might not be able to tell you too much about what's relevant to that school, about that school for you specifically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the beast. And I think admissions offices do a really good job and they're working really hard and they do very important things. But at the same time, by the nature of having thousands upon thousands of applicants every single year, there are some areas that reasonably it doesn't make sense for them to go into. So we're trying to fill in those spaces.
No, that really sounds great. I mean, was there anything you experienced on your experiences as a prospective student, touring colleges that stood out to you? Any good or bad experiences you had?
I think, while admissions really does a good job trying to put things together, I think there, like we said, there's some things they can't do. So trying to shepherd an entire group of say 20 or 30 visitors into a dorm room is entirely impossible. Just logistically, I can't even imagine getting people up and down the elevators with something of that size. So I thought that's an extremely important part of the process because in truth, when you're choosing a school as a student, you're imagining it. You're imagining what does my morning look like as a student at Georgetown, as a student, at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, at University of Southern California. What does it look like to be there? And I think the one important thing is, school tours can't necessarily take you into a classroom or into every classroom you want to see or into every dorm room that you want to see. So that was something that stood out for me. I didn't quite get to see everything I wanted, and that's what we hope to fix with this.
No, it sounds like a really ideal solution. It almost kind of reminds me a little bit of, I don't know if you ever heard of couch surfing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for traveling and backpacking around the world, to get that personal experience where you stay with a local person. You can even read their profile and then find someone who can show you around and maybe knows about what you would want to see in that area.
Yeah, exactly. We're couch surfing for college tours.
Yeah. Cool. One thing we love to hear on College Admissions Toolbox are stories. I'm wondering if you guys could tell me about the worst moment you've seen or experienced in the college admissions process, and then we'll kind of go into the lessons learned from that. Anything come to mind?
I think undoubtedly it was for me at least, it was my big rejection day. Heard back from a bunch of schools and some of which were in my top choices, and it didn't work out so well. And so at the sort of very moment of that was really rough. Having put in so much work throughout high school into getting the grades that I needed to be an applicant for these places, getting the test scores I needed. And then spending hours and hours and hours on the applications, it was rough to get rejected. But I think the sort of most important takeaway is I sort of felt sorry for myself for a couple hours, and I was like, look, there's not really anything to change here, not worth dwelling on. Let's focus on the options that I do have, which Georgetown was one of them, so great options. And I am a strong believer that it works out in the end. That to a certain extent, like if you cast your net wide enough and apply to schools that you're actually interested in, and you apply to only schools that you're interested in, the ones that you get into will end up working out for you.
Yeah, trying to think. My worst moment of the college admissions process, I was the kind of applicant that they advise you not to be, which is I put all my eggs in one basket and applied early to Georgetown and assumed that would be perfect. I was like, I'm definitely getting in. It's going to be fine early, and I'm going to be done. I don't need to apply anywhere else. Long story short, I did not get in early, and that That was when I was waiting in my mailbox because Georgetown still sends the letters by hand. And the mail carrier comes up to me. She holds my Georgetown letter and she goes, "Feels weirdly light." And then she hands it to me.
Oh no.
and I opened it up and I got deferred. And I all of a sudden had to start applying to school. So like over the course of 6 days, I banged out 2 applications a day. That was my Christmas holiday. I didn't go out.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't go outdoors for like 7 days straight. And so that was probably the low point. But in the end, like David was saying, in the end, I mean, you end up happy wherever you're at because you find your place there.
Yeah, exactly. You find a good peer group, you find a cool project to work on, you get busy with your classes, you find a group of friends. It all ends up working out fine. I mean, you guys are obviously at a great school, but even if you end up somewhere lower tier, you can still transfer, or you can even be happy where you are in the end.
Yeah, there's so many college students who, I have friends back in high school who are talking about how much they're stressing and fretting about, what if I don't get in here and what if I don't get in here? And I'm sure David and I went through the exact same thoughts. And it's really not until you're on the other side of the whole that you're kind of I really would have been fine no matter where I ended up because I would make it work.
Oh, of course. And one way to find a school that is where you're going to be happy is to find that good fit. And so definitely, the campus touring process can kind of help you figure out what you like and what you don't like. So I'm wondering, I know Campus Sherpa is obviously a great program, but I'm wondering just in general for students who are visiting college campuses, what are some, best practices you would recommend for students to make sure they're finding, they're kind of doing that investigative work aside from the official tour a school might offer?
Sure. So I think, College Confidential is a great resource. Reading about some of the things that people are saying about these schools, I wouldn't take it, without a grain of salt. Definitely it's only certain people's opinions about the school. And unlike the people who are standing up and talking about the school, they might be feel more strongly about certain things, and I wouldn't let that sway you wholly. But I think it is important to do some reading about the school in advance, and then keep an open mind. I think would be the other thing I would recommend. That going through high school towards the application process, I thought, well, I only want to go to a mid-sized school. I ended up applying to just a couple small liberal arts schools, at the very end of my application process, really just for the hell of it. But sort of told myself, I was like, oh, there's no way, I don't want a small school at all. And then when the sort of decision time came, and I went to actually visit some of those schools, I was like, wow, some of these places are actually really cool. And so my decision process actually came down between a small liberal arts school and Georgetown, which is something I absolutely wouldn't have expected, the sort of beginning of my junior year when I thought I was only applying to large schools. So I think keep an open mind, because you think these places, but then you get to know them a little bit better and you realize that maybe it is for you, and you didn't really shut off an option before even realizing it.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's 3 very concrete things that you want to do if you're looking at a school and you're trying to figure it out. I think 1, work at the school. I mean, go and find a specific area where students work on campus. And even if it's just a book you have to read for class because you're doing it during spring break, or if it's during the summer and you're reading for yourself, or if you have any sort of work to do, really take that time to sit in a local coffee shop or someplace where there's really a student culture and sit down and join it. I mean, really immerse yourself in it, because everyone there is doing work. Feel like what it would be like to be working at that school, I think, is a big part of it. The second thing is, just ambush someone. Find a college students walking around, and you know what? That's your random sample. Just go up to a random student and ask them, a couple pointed questions about campus culture. Because I think, David and I have talked so heavily about how important culture is to the school you're going to. I mean, when you think of UC Berkeley, you think of kind of that strain of kind of hippie countercultural vibe, and it wouldn't be the same without it. Find a student and just ask them, what is it like to be here every day? Who are your friends? What groups are your friends in? How do they get involved? And the third thing I do, I don't know if this is the most helpful, but I always like to watch movies about the schools. I don't, before Georgetown, I watched St. Elmo's Fire. Before, looking at Harvard, I watched Love Story. I don't know. Maybe that's the pop culture side of it. I always think that's the most fun part of it. So those would be my 3 tips.
That's all really great advice. I mean, when I used to visit college campuses, I would totally just go up and ambush students and just ask them about the school. And then don't be afraid to do that. Current students are always happy to share their opinions. A lot of them are going to feel strongly one way or the other. So you got to ask a couple of them, but either way, people have strong opinions and they're going to want to share those opinions with anyone. Either don't make the same mistake I did, don't go here, or they'll say, you're going to love it, come out with us this weekend, have fun, whatever. But yeah, definitely, regardless, at least spend time on the campus, just hang out, in the coffee shop nearby or something.
Yeah.
Just, even bring your high school work with you. Just sit there, study, because you're going to be studying out of books the exact same way. So get a sense, look around, see what the other students are like, even chat with them a little bit if you can. But that's really all great advice, guys. Thanks so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears now and move into my favorite part of the interview, which is the lightning round. I'm going to ask you guys some rapid fire questions. You give me some rapid fire responses. Are you ready?
All right, we can do it.
All right, great. What's your number one piece of advice for the college admissions process?
Work. Just don't stop working. It seems terrible at times, and you think it's not going to end, but you got to power through it, and eventually it's done.
I would say get started early. Your applications only get better over time. So if you get started, end of your junior year in the summer, you'll have a lot of time to edit the essays, and you'll get more mature, and you'll have better sort of foresight when you're able to look back and edit them.
Definitely. Great advice. Thanks. Could you share with us one habit that you believe contributes to college admissions success?
One habit. Being, I guess sort of the same answer here, but being proactive, make sure you're on top of your deadlines, that you're not sort of, waiting to the last minute for everything, because, the people in the admissions offices, they definitely know what they're doing. They read thousands and thousands of applications. They can tell when something was put together the night before, and you don't want to be that person who put their application together the night before.
I'd say, I don't know but thoughtful honesty. If you're writing an essay, you want it to be honest, you want it to sound authentic, because of course that's what stands out. And I don't know if necessarily that means, writing an essay about the virtues of macaroni and cheese. I don't know if it has to be that far out there, but realistically, if you just write a cut and dry essay, it goes in the cut and dry pile and it works, but really trying to find something unique about what you offer and being able to put that out there.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. That reflection, that maturity, that honesty. You don't have to try and present yourself as being perfect. They're actually not going to like that, for sure.
Exactly.
What's one online college admissions resource that you absolutely love?
Oh gosh, I think the College Explorers blog has been very big for us. Nancy Greismer has been. We follow her blog pretty religiously, and I think she offers some great insight. She was also great because she wrote the first feature about our company right when we were getting started. So yeah, Nancy.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Great. We'll link to that one in the show notes. What's one book that you believe no college applicant should be without?
I think there's, I'll give a specific answer for myself, but I think it should all be about what your passion is, right? And so I think you should be reading about those things you care about. So for me, other than the entrepreneurial side, I'm crazy about comedy. So I've been reading Truth in Comedy by Del Close about improv. And what that allows me to do is when I'm applying, when I'm talking to these college counselors or to these college admissions individuals at the schools, I'm not just talking about general vague interests. I'm saying specifically that reminds me of exactly what I heard in this book by Del Close, and it told me this. So, if you have a passion in entrepreneurship, you should probably be reading, Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. If you have an interest in aviation even, you could read Skyfaring by Mark Van Hocker. Find one book that speaks to that thing that you love so that when it comes time to answer those specific questions, you have just a plethora of information you can lie back on. I think no one's ever been hurt by citing a book in their college interview. That's always something that's good.
Oh, for sure. No one reads these days anymore. Everyone's online. So definitely if you set yourself apart by actually reading anything, that alone will stand out, right?
Literacy. If you have literacy, you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for joining us, guys. What's next for you with Campus Sherpa?
Gosh, there's a number of big pushes. We're actually in the middle, and David has some other, I run marketing in the program. David runs a lot of the operations. For marketing, we're actually in the middle of rolling out a high school representative program. We're looking for really creative entrepreneurial high schoolers who might be interested in running their own marketing campaigns, working with Campus Sherpa. So we're looking for kids who want to be involved in startups, who are in high school, who might be interested in kind of spreading the word on their campus and really putting together some really interesting creative campaigns. Dave, what do you...
I guess for me, it's sort of a more big picture thing. I'm really sort of working towards making this a normal part of the college application process, that you go to visit a school, you go on the official tour, and then you go on your Campus Sherpa tour, because I really think that we provide a crucial piece of the puzzle that isn't already provided. And that's a piece of the puzzle that will give you, infinite more information when it comes time to do your application, or when it comes, time to make your decision, that you'll just feel that you know these places better and that you can make a more informed decision rather than just sort of shooting in the dark.
Very cool. I think it's a great project. I wish I'd been around when I was applying, and I encourage everyone to check it out. So where can folks find you online?
So we're available at www.campussherpa.co. That's campussherpa.co. That's kind of the main place to find us. We also have a fantastic new blog that got started in last week called Sherpa Secrets. You can find that through our site. It's really great because basically we just reached out to our group of about 400 Sherpas around the country and asked them, tell us something about your school you don't know, or share with us the itinerary of a tour that you would give. And so even if you're not taking a Campus Sherpa tour, although we really hope you do, but even if you're not taking a Campus Sherpa tour, you can still use the assets and the inside information that our Sherpas provide. So that's Sherpa Secrets. That's available on our blog. It's a great way to pass an afternoon if you're procrastinating from studying from the last round of SATs. It's also an option. We'd say work hard for them, but everyone has flaws, and we're here to see if we can entertain you for a little bit.
Yeah, and we link to the blog and the website on our Facebook and on our Twitter. Just Campus Sherpa, search us, follow us, like us.
Great. Very cool, guys. Well, thank you again for joining us. You gave us a lot of great insights and tips. I'm sure everyone's going to love it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to College Admissions Toolbox. Head over to www.collegeadmissionstoolbox.com to get more free tools and resources that will help you get into the colleges of your dreams.